Oh, yes, everybody. We are back once again on the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. Great to be here. We're going to be chatting some rookie studs and rookie duds today on the show. We've got the best two co-hosts of the show rocking it. And of course, it is ultimately the best three. Lewis, I know you don't do the Wildcard Rewind anymore, but you're still very much a part of the Wildcard family. So I'm rolling after the best three from the Wildcard crew. We got Lewis Wood in the house. You might know him from Scott Fishbowl fame, of course, where he was oh so close to winning the whole damn thing, but he's going to run it back this year and get to that number one spot. And of course, he is from the amazing Fantasy Pancake Show as well. Lewis, the people know you already, I'm sure. They love you already. It's great to see you. I'm sure people are delighted to have you back on. How you doing?
Thank you very much. That's a lovely intro. I'm delighted to be back on with you guys. I've missed coming on the wild card, and I've missed hearing the best three. I've not had, I don't start my shows on YouTube calling myself the best one because I think that would get me in trouble with my audience a little bit. So it's nice to be back on with you guys. It's lovely to see your beautiful faces and excited to talk through some rookies today.
Oh, I'm absolutely pumped. Ali, you excited to get going with these rookie studs and duds?
Oh, absolutely. And obviously, we are one member missing because when we think about studs and duds, there was a stud at Iowa State in terms of receivers, and there was a dud. So, he chose the right show not to come on. As we all know, Jalen Knoll was not the stud.
Absolutely. But we know James himself, an absolute stud. Just missing him today. I'm sure he'll be back very, very soon. Boys, I think we're gonna roll right into it, and let's start with the good news, shall we? Let's go for the studs. Lewis, as the guest, we're gonna pitch it to you first. Who do you see as some rookie studs for this year?
Yeah, so I found this really interesting to look through. And as I was putting together not just my rookie rankings for the guide I put out, but also trying to do some comparison to Keep Trade Cut, to DLF, and to consensus rankings to see where I'm higher and lower. And I think one of the interesting things when you start actually doing rookie drafts is learning, okay, these are the ways my rankings work out. But when I'm actually on the clock, am I fully willing to commit to taking this player in a certain spot? And the second one I'm going to talk about is someone I found I'm willing to draft way higher than I thought I would going into rookie drafts. But the first one is someone that I've loved since relatively early in the process. I mean, fell in love with last year when he broke out in his sophomore season. The 2024 season wasn't so great for him. He slipped out of the first round, but Luther Burden going into the draft process was seen as the consensus wide receiver 2. If you're not including Travis Hunter, if you're sort of not thinking about the win as a Travis Hunter, he was a consensus wide receiver 2. He actually then, throughout the process, slowly slid further and further down. And the weird thing with Burden is that he was drafted to basically the ideal spot. He was drafted to a creative play caller that will know how to properly use the explosive yards after the catch ability that he showed, particularly in that 2023 season. And for some reason, I think because it's a slightly crowded depth chart, people are now dropping him down draft boards. And I wrote him up. So at DLF, we do pre-draft rookie profiles. We do an early look. We do a pre-draft, and then we do a post-draft final rookie profile. And Luther Burden, I've done all three, which is quite rare actually. And I was writing the Luther Burden post-draft rookie profile the other day. And as I was writing it, I was like, I can't understand why his ADP is where it is. I think it might take a little bit of time, but I think there's a world in which DJ Moore doesn't end up on this team. I think there's a world in which he then takes the starting slot role. And I think that means that not only is he potentially playing the Amon-Ra role in this offense, which has seen over 100 targets every single year that Amon-Ra has been in the league, but he's also working with someone that knows how to get the ball in the hands of his playmakers with timing routes and with working them open in creative ways, which is what Luther Burden really needs because he's not a traditional outside wide receiver. So I still have him at the 112. And I've basically found, including in a league that both of you guys are in the Wildcard Invitational, he's slipping all the way down to like the 205, the 206. And so on those rosters, I found myself not just drafting a lot of him at the 112 if I'm there, but actually ending up trading up in the second quite a lot to go up and get him. Because I just can't really, I appreciate the risk in the profile. I appreciate the effort concerns that people have spoken about. I appreciate the fact that he might not be a full-time outside wide receiver. He might be slot only. But man, the upside is so huge, and to be able to get him midway through the second round just feels like such a huge value for me.
Yeah, Luther Burton's a really interesting player. And something I've not seen spoken about with Luther Burton was something I kind of popped into my head not that long ago. It might be more of a niche link, but if people remember Caleb Williams last year in college, he teamed up with a rookie Zachariah Branch, who was very gadgety and very like he had to make plays with Zachariah Branch, and he became a bit of a superstar. And then we seen that kind of decline as soon as Caleb left, and he didn't really fulfill his potential. We'll see what happens to him this year, obviously with a bit of a weird transfer. But I think Caleb Williams, no one's really speaking about how good a fit Caleb is for Luther Burton. I think it's real nice.
Yeah.
Lewis, you excited about that link up?
Yeah, definitely. I think people aren't really talking about Caleb in the midst of all of this as obviously one of the biggest winners of the offseason in getting the hottest property in head coach and then getting two of the best receivers in the draft, and obviously Colston Loveland and then Luther Burden. But the fit with his game, definitely, in terms of like the creativity of being able to buy time in the pocket or be able to be used on designed rollouts where Luther Burden can then sneak out and then gain yards after the catch, I think is a really nice fit. And we think of Caleb as, because I think sometimes at USC he ended up being a little bit of a gunslinger or sort of that Patrick Mahomes type. I'm going to dance behind the offensive line for 3.5, 4 seconds, and then I'm going to try and make something happen. But when Caleb is playing in rhythm, he actually shows a lot of accuracy in timing and in the horizontal game. And the horizontal game is really where the Lions offense the last couple of years has thrived. So it's in the ability to get the ball to your weapons with room for them to then gain yards after the catch. And like Luther Burden is the best yards after the catch threat in this draft. So it really surprised me why he landed with an offense we're really excited about, a quarterback who was taken first overall last year. Yeah, it wasn't the best rookie season, but it was very much a Shane Waldron thing, we think, more than a Caleb Williams thing, and an offensive line thing. They've properly revamped the offensive line. I can't really understand why Luther Burden is now slipping down draft boards off the back of that.
Yeah, especially in Dynasty as well, where we've seen it. You have to play that long game. That wide receiver room is not going to be around like that forever. Ali, we'll get you to weigh in maybe on Lewis's second stud, but we'll pitch it to you to get intro your first stud, who is a running back with a real good opportunity on the horizon.
Yeah, I think so. It's Jaden Blue. Obviously been drafted to the Dallas Cowboys, probably slightly later than I wanted to pre-draft. I think I did have him, really quite high. Obviously at Texas, he wasn't the main guy until 2024. And even then, I think he was a bit patchy in terms of his production, but he's got all the traits there where he's pretty good in between the tackles, and he's just an explosive force. And that's the thing that really excites me with the landing spot, with the fact that obviously the Cowboys have got Javonte Williams, they've got Miles Sanders, but when you think of explosiveness, those two really don't come to mind. I think that Jaden Blue is going to be a proper weapon, or I hope that he's going to be a proper weapon for them in 2024. Obviously, they've now traded for George Pickens, but that still doesn't really take away from what Jaden Blue can do. In fact, it probably gives the running backs more chance and more space underneath. So I just think when I look at 2024, the struggle for the Cowboys was their lack of explosive plays. In fact, there was only 6 teams lower than them that had less explosive plays in 2024. So I'm really all in on this Dallas offense this year. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, I think is going to bounce back in a big way. I just think at the price you're having to pay for Jaden Blue, I'm getting him sort of mid to late third round pick in some rookie drafts. I just think that's value because of the upside. And I think he's the sort of player that really only needs, say, 30% snap share, 40%. And we've seen what can happen with Bucky Irving. And, he averaged less than 50% in most games in 2024. It just needs a couple of big plays, and, the production is going to be there for Jaden Blue. So it's not a banker whatsoever, but I think the risk reward factor is certainly there when you're drafting him in sort of I've taken him late second round in a draft. So I'm really ahead of ADP. So, I just think that the chance he's got to succeed is there in Dallas.
Lewis, what do you think about Jaden Blue?
So I think this is a really interesting one where Jaden Blue is exactly the type of running back that I tend to fall for in the pre-draft process, because I like receiving backs and I like explosivity and I like lateral agility. And that's something that you really saw from Jaden Blue all through college. My worry with him is when I scouted him, I thought he struggled between the tackles. I thought he struggled with contact because he's obviously a much smaller back. And while I do like the fit with Dallas, they've obviously improved the offensive line quite a lot. They drafted an early guard who I think should be interesting. Tyler Booker, he's not the best mover, but he is an unbelievably strong human, an unbelievably dense human as well. The thing for me is that the Dallas system, they will do everything they can to make it work with a veteran before they will give a younger player a chance. So even last year, you saw them continually, like, they didn't want Rico Dowdle to be their lead back. They wanted Zeke to be their lead back. They kept trying to give Zeke the work. They tried signing Dalvin Cook. They tried anything but giving it to the younger, more explosive player. So my worry is that they've gone and spent on, not a huge amount, but they have spent some guaranteed money on Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. And whether it will be a case of, okay, they want to be a strong, really physically dominant rushing team, that Jaden Blue isn't really that. And Javonte Williams, particularly college Javonte Williams, maybe not so much Denver Broncos Javonte Williams, was all about that aggressive running style and that contact balance and that ability to break tackles. I mean, his 2023 season, or maybe 2022, I can't get the years right, but his last season in college at UNC, he was a tackle breaking machine. So my worry is that if they've now drafted a more physical guard, do they want to become a more physical rushing team? And is that going to limit Jaden Blue's upside? I definitely can see the lightning in a bottle and explosive ability. I think it's just the ability. I think it's a case of, if you can get him on the field, if he can get himself on the field and he can get some targets and he can get that third down work, I think it'll be hard to take him off of it. I think it's just finding that initial opportunity to actually get him onto the field that I struggle to see.
And would you be surprised if they got involved in the Nick Chubb sweepstakes? Because I can just see Jerry Jones thinking, this is my guy. You look at the videos he's putting out. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, but I'd absolutely hate it.
No,
it
wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to see him with a star in his helmet. I don't know. I wouldn't feel right. Yeah, he's hopefully not heading that way. Sneaky, maybe reading into it too much. Lewis, you kind of mentioned the style of play. They did take Phil Maffa a lot later on. Phil Maffa is a thumper. Like, that's all he does. All Phil Maffa can do is thump through tackles. So that maybe does kind of give it a little insight, maybe the way they want to play. But I don't know, maybe they are wanting to play Thunder and Lightning and they've accidentally thought Miles Sanders still has some juice left. And I don't know, trying to play into that. But we'll see how that works out. I'm going to give you my stud. I think this kind of writes itself. I haven't really pushed the boat out too much. Trevion Henderson, I still think is just so good. Pre-draft process, I actually had him ahead over Marion Hampton. I have adjusted it because Hampton's landing spot is just perfect beyond belief, and the draft capital was insane as well. So I have bumped Hampton above of Henderson, but I don't get the beef. I don't think I need to go into too much detail about why Trevion Henderson is a stud, but I do want to highlight that he's still a stud despite the landing spot, which I think people are, I don't know, poo-pooing on a little bit, but I'm like, he's got Drake May, who everybody loves. The whole thing about the Patriots is, oh, they've got no one to throw it to. It's like, hello, what is Trevion Henderson really good at? Everybody, hi. Like, they have a clear gap for someone who needs to catch passes. They've brought in a pass-catching running back. This is a match made in heaven. I don't really get the people going like, I don't get it. Like, this is borderline perfect. Just because it's not, the sexy landing spot, people are kind of like, oh, I don't know. But actually, I think this is a sneakily great spot for Trevion Henderson. We could see him, if everything clicks and goes right, because I don't see Stevenson being too much of a problem. He could be the lead running back in terms of fantasy points scored this year if he gets this pass catching work that I'm expecting him to. Lewis, I don't think I need to sell you on is he a stud or not, but what do you think about the landing spot?
So I think the really interesting thing with Henderson is, people were basically praying for him to go to the Chicago Bears, and he went one pick ahead of the Chicago Bears. And that's why people are then down on it, is people were hoping that he'd fall to Chicago, he'd take the Jahmyr Gibbs role, we'd be able to see immediately how that's going to work, you know, potentially the most explosive back in this draft class when he's healthy, and someone that I loved pre-draft. I still have him as my RB2 just because I love the talent that much, and the upside of him I think is way higher than Amari and Hampton. So I think people were so excited for that Bears pick, and I think actually we've heard that the Bears tried to trade up one slot to get him as well, so the Bears knew that that was the fit as well. So I think people were then anything but that people were disappointed by. Now, to me, the Patriots landing spot is a really exciting one. This is an ascending offense. They do now have a wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. I really like Kyle Williams. I really still like Stephon Diggs if he's recovered well enough from the ACL. He showed a lot last year. But we saw the level of, because if you had Ramondre Stevenson in PPR leagues last season, he was playing really well for you. And it was because he was just getting a huge amount of checkdowns from Drake May. Drake May is someone who will try and keep a play alive, which means that often a running back who can get open in the flat will end up, especially when there was very little separation happening from the wide receiver core, that is going to present a little bit of a safety valve for you. If that's still the same this year, although the offensive line is better, then Travion Henderson could be in for kind of 60, 65 targets in his rookie season. And that is something we need to be very excited about. So yeah, he tends to be slipping to the 106, 107 in rookie drafts. And if you are taking a team with that draft spot, you either just missed playoffs or you made playoffs and you're adding Travion Henderson to your team. That is so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pumped for Travion Henderson, and we got James's studs as well. He of course picked Jalen Noel, but it does say in the show notes here somehow only one share of Jalen Noel he's ended up with. Ali, the big question is James a complete fraud?
Yes, he is, and I think that's why he's not showing up secretly tonight. Yeah, I think that he's obviously not a believer in Jalen Noel, really, and he just wants to take me down for my love of Jaden Higgins, who is just going to be so interesting. I'm just going to say it will be so interesting to see how this fits in the Texas offense. I think there's plenty of weapons there, and obviously Christian Kirk, presume, is going to have that slot role. So how much of the field is Jalen Noel going to see? But you know, they drafted him straight after they drafted Jaden Higgins, so that is going to be super interesting to me. I obviously going to back my boy Higgins, but Jalen Noel, I mean, in terms of studs, his ADP I think was absolutely acceptable. He was, getting drafted in the 3rd round, which is really, really good value. So I have actually taken more shares of Jalen Noel than James. So that is quite funny.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Is Jalen Noel a guy on your radar as well, Lewis? Do you see him as potential stud?
Yeah, he was a my guy pre-draft, so he actually was my wide receiver 6, just ahead of Jaden Higgins. So I was, when we've been talking about this in our wildcard chat, I've been on the Noel side pre-draft. But when a team tells you that they're targeting Higgins around before Jalen Noel, you have to flip that switch. Like the thing I'm really interested about is the way that I think they're going to end up seeing the field. So I think the Texans really wanted a guard early. And because the guard they wanted didn't drop, that's why they ended up trading out then with the Giants. We were really anticipating them targeting offensive line early, and they just didn't. They decided to go, okay, we're going to go all in on weapons. I think to me, the way they line up is going to be really interesting. So their new offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, who was the tight ends coach of the Rams, and we know, again, similar to what I was talking about earlier on in terms of like a very horizontal system. Nick Caley coached under Sean McVay when it was really looking at that spread offense and working sideline to sideline. Jalen Noel is probably still the most explosive threat on this team. I think I'm really interested. People immediately look at the sizes and go, Nico Collins obviously going to play on the boundary, and do we then play Jalen Noel in the slot and Jaden Higgins on the other sideline? I'd like it to be the other way around. I'd be really interested to see Jaden Higgins working more as a power slot and using Jalen Noel as that more vertical field stretcher, or in kind of the screen game, or looking to gain yards after the catch, more so than taking that slot role. And especially Christian Kirk was a really good comp for Jalen Noel, because it's about a slot role that more works through vertical slot work than through sort of slants and screens and that sort of sideline slot work that we see from more of kind of a Cooper Cup type. So I think, yeah, I'm really into Jalen Knoll. I ended up drafting quite a lot just because he ended up going so late. He ended up, sort of early to mid third, that I thought he had the highest potential there. And a lot of the time when you get to that sort of stage in the draft, I'm just drafting by draft capital, more so than players that I love and hate. So because he was drafted in the third round of the NFL draft and he's going in the third in rookie draft, so I've ended up with, I think, probably 3 or 4 shares across my leagues.
Do you think Nick Healy's going to be surprised coming from the Rams tight end room? Do you think he's going to be surprised to see like healthy players on the field, Lewis?
Well, I don't know, because it's just sort of Dalton Schultz that he's now going to coach. So I don't know. I think like a fully healthy Dalton Schultz is probably about the same as like a Colby Parkinson or Davis Allen or something.
Yeah, shout out Tyler Higbee living in everyone's IR list for the last 2 years as well. That guy just can't catch a break. He also mentioned Woody Marks as maybe one of the most drafted players. For some reason, I got loads of Woody Marks as well. So I'm not sure I put the stud label on him, but he's a nice guy to add. And Lewis, you've got one more stud for us as well. Tyler Shuck. I've ended up with loads. I said I'd rather be shot in the face than draft Tyler Shuck, and here I am with like 4 different shares of him. So Lewis, tell me why is he a stud in your eyes?
So this is when I hinted at the beginning of like, I put together my rookie rankings and I did a whole video on it. And I spoke about in Superflex leagues, the 211 and the 212 were Tyler Shugg and Jalen Milroe. And my answer to that situation was, if you have stud quarterbacks, you should go for Jalen Milroe because you don't need him to play and you can afford to let him sit and develop. If you need a starter at quarterback, you need to be looking for Shuck because you need someone to be able to start right away, and I think he will on the Saints. The question was always Derek Carr, who then retired. When we've got into the actual draft and you're looking at the positional advantage of the quarterback position in Superflex, being able to take a quarterback who's going to start day one, midway through the second towards the late second, is just something that I've just kept doing, and I've not really wanted to each time, but each time I've looked and I've gone, okay, what's the upside here? Do I want to be looking towards like Bashal Tootin, who might earn the third down role in Jacksonville? Or do I want to be looking towards Jack Bash? Or, am I going to look towards one of the tight ends? And I'm like, no, the best pick I can make here is to get a starting quarterback, because even if he only plays for one season, you could probably trade him midway through the year to a quarterback needy team, and they'll probably pay you at least what you paid. You'll get at least a second, maybe 2 seconds for a starting quarterback in season. Maybe you'll even get a first if people are desperate. And like, he's gone to a really quarterback friendly system. We've seen huge amounts of fantasy success with obviously Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts in the same system. Now, obviously a very different type of player, nowhere near the same upside, but maybe the same kind of physical tools as a Justin Herbert with Tyler Shugg with the huge arm. Not a player I really liked pre-draft, but then vaulted up to my QB3 after the draft. And when you get to that sort of position midway through the second, I've not found myself being able to not take him because it's a starting quarterback on day one available in the mid-second. That just felt like such a huge value to me.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat. Ali, are you in agreement as well? Do you just find yourself, you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to not take him?
Well, yeah, this is it. And Lewis absolutely nailed it, because I think the worst you're going to get is your money back. You're going to get your pick back in the next draft. I just think the opportunity is absolutely there. And yeah, I've been faced with, my most recent drafts, especially because before the Derek Carr news, I would be taking Jalen Milroe ahead of Tyler Shuck. But, with that news now, I'm tend to lean Tyler Shuck, especially if, I've not got a secure sort of quarterback 3 on my roster. Just because of that immediate start and production that he's going to have. And hopefully the offense will be healthy in 2025 and like it was in 2024 for the Saints. I just want to shout out a guy in my league as well that drafted Tyler Shuck and then changed his fantasy team name to Shuck Around and Find Out. I thought that was pretty good.
That's strong.
Nice.
I like that. Yeah, I need to have a real think about some new rookie names for teams. There's got to be a few gems out there, so I'll have to have a think. I've not seen anything as good as that though, Ali. That's fantastic.
Pretty good, yeah.
From that great news, moving on to slightly less. And if we listen carefully, you'll hear thunderclouds appearing above us because Lewis is about to anger the weather god of fantasy by bringing up one of his duds. We all know the weatherman Matt loves this guy. We all know he's been calling Ali a hypocrite all season for drafting him anyway. But Lewis, we're going to add another name to the list of people who don't like Caleb Johnson.
Yeah. So Caleb Johnson, to me, you wanted him to land in an outside zone heavy run scheme, and he did. And so I think that's incredibly exciting, and he found a really nice landing spot. The problem for me is the cost. And the problem for me is where you actually then have to take him in rookie draft. So I'm happy with the landing spot. I'm relatively happy with the talent. He fell below RJ Harvey in my rankings. They were in a tier of their own. So just after Henderson, Hampton, and Judkins, then it was them two. And because of the landing spot in the draft capital, I flipped them. The problem for me is that Caleb Johnson is still going. If you look at DLF consensus rankings or ADP from MLF from really ongoing rookie drafts, in one quarterback leagues, you have to take him around the 110. In Superflex leagues, it's the 111. So he's going around the same area of the draft as some players that I just really massively prefer over him. So he is going ahead of, in Superflex leagues, he's going ahead of Colston Loveland. He's going ahead of Jackson Dart. He's going ahead of Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins, Trey Harris, right? And they're players that I all would happily take above Caleb Johnson. I'm not convinced with him because they have Jalen Warren, who they really love, and he's going to be the pass catcher. And we just didn't really see a huge amount of pass catching work from him at Iowa. So there's a huge amount of projection there of how it could work at the next level. We know he's going to get a huge amount of volume, but to me, they kind of just replaced Najee Harris with younger Najee Harris. It's not a huge amount more upside to me. And then the players around him, like he's going to have a relatively stable floor. He's going to be a solid RB2, but the players going around him, like if he's going at the same sort of range as Colston Loveland, who's my tight end 1, I'm going to take Loveland ahead of him. If he's going at the same sort of range as Luther Burden, who's my wide receiver 4, I'm going to be taking him ahead just because I think the upside really isn't there with Caleb Johnson. And when I'm drafting in the first round, I want someone that I think can be a mainstay of my team for the next few seasons and not someone that in 2 years I'm going to be going, maybe I should add a piece to him and see if I can upgrade him to someone that's going to be like a difference maker to my team as opposed to someone that's going to get me, 12 to 14 PPR points a week and be fine, but not really someone that I want to build a team around.
Absolutely. Go on, Ali. Now's your chance again. Stick the boot in one more time. Go on.
Well, I don't know how much I can after I have drafted him. I don't know whether I took him because it was always one pick ahead of Matt, and I knew how furious it would make him. But my problem is I just think the Steelers are going to be an absolute dog pile of an offense, especially this year going forward. Yeah, he's going to get volume, but I am big on Jalen Warren as well. I've seen him go ahead of RJ Harvey in a couple of drafts. That's just a massive no-no. But where I have been taking him has been where I've had multiple first-round picks. So I've had, either Tet McMillan or Travis Hunter, and then with my second pick, I'll go Caleb Johnson. And I feel like that is absolutely fine. If he's my only first-round pick, my only pick I've got in the first round, and I'm taking him, it doesn't feel great to me. I don't think he's going to be a long mainstay in my offense, in my team. I just think he's fine. And then he's just in a big tier. Like you mentioned, Lewis, there's so many people in that tier for me from about pick 11 to the 205, 206. And I think, has he really got the most upside out of all these guys? Probably not. So, yeah, I do struggle with him. And, yeah, I've not got him as high as most people have. And when you take him, you have to take him in the first round. So it is, makes it even more difficult for me.
Yeah, you can certainly see that. And Ali, while you're on a roll, let's move on to one of your duds. And this one might shock some people because this guy's been catching a lot of buzz pre-draft and then post-draft. He's caught it as well. So let us know: is this a landing spot thing, or is this a talent thing, or a bit of both for you?
It's pretty much a landing spot thing because obviously draft capital was absolutely perfect, exactly what we wanted. It's a landing spot, and then the cost in rookie drafts where I've got quite a gap between him and Colston Loveland, where I'm taking Loveland comfortably ahead in round one. I've taken Tyler Warren one share, but because he fell to like the 203, and I thought that's absolutely fine for me. But first round draft capital.
Come on. Come on.
First round draft capital, I cannot get on board with Tyler Warren. I think the Colts are just a difficult offense to figure out. I mean, what does the quarterback position look like this year? Yes, he's got great talent, although we've only really seen one big year of production. He's a little bit older, and obviously I think that he's going to have an immediate role. It's just a lot of bodies. You know, people have completely forgotten about Michael Pittman Jr. You've got Alec Pierce. I really love Josh Downs. I think he's going to be the number one. And it's going to run through the running game, whoever the quarterback's going to be. So I just struggle to get on board with Warren, especially at cost. I'm really favouring Colston Loveland now. I had Tyler Warren as my tight end 1 pre-draft, completely flipped it now. Really excited. You know, it's that sort of the Bears effect with Luther Burden. Excited about how Ben Johnson's going to use him. The same with Colston Loveland. So it is really just cost. And I really just did not want him to land on the Colts because they have just gone through tight end after tight end. And they seem to have drafted so many tight ends recently, and none of them ever make it. So I feel like it could fizzle away for Tyler Warren if he doesn't hit, because people are just assuming that he's going to hit maybe quicker than Colston Loveland. But what if he doesn't? You know, his value could drop away quicker than we want it to.
Yeah, Lewis, did any of that ring alarm bells for you as well? Him landing over there at the Colts, and would he be much happier if he went somewhere else?
Yeah, Tyler Warren was always a little bit of a difficult profile for me, so I always had him as my tight end 2. And it was really like you watch highlight film of Tyler Warren and you're like, yeah, this guy's brilliant, he's an absolute beast. And then you dig a little bit more into the profile and you go, okay, he's a really weird profile because he doesn't really run routes and he kind of lines up all over the place, and he only really had 1 year of production, and like his final year in college was more productive than the rest of his years in college put together. And he was in college a long time. Then you combine that with going to the Colts. So with Anthony Richardson was like by far the least accurate quarterback in the intermediate game last season. And I think that's across his time in the NFL actually as a starter. We presume Anthony Richardson is going to be the starter going into week 1. If it's Daniel Jones, that doesn't really help things a huge amount. I mean, he's a better passer, but not by a huge amount than Richardson. So to me, like, there's a lot of concerns there in terms of Tyler Warren's usage, in terms of his profile. He still sits as my tight end 2 because I still think there's enough about him to like, but I agree with you, Ali, that like where you actually have to draft him, you still see him going as the tight end 1 in a lot of leagues. I actually think his ADP might still be ahead of Loveland's because it was the consensus to have Tyler Warren as your tight end 1 pre-draft, and even though it wasn't drafted that way in the actual NFL draft, I think a lot of people have still sat that way. So the cost you have to pay for Tyler Warren is not something I'm ever actually willing to do.
Yeah, he's a real fascinating guy. I'm just looking forward to seeing him play. Like he's going to be real interesting to see how that kind of athleticism, which stands so much in college, like how does that translate across to the NFL? And now my one, this is going to piss some people off probably, but I'll say it. I'll not even skirt around it. I don't think Matthew Golden's that good. I really don't. I don't really see it. I don't really get it. As you know, on the Dynasty Hot Seat, I've been doing drafts since early October. I didn't hear the name Matthew Golden until the Combine. Not once did anyone utter his name outside of maybe a guy I like in the 3rd round. And then he runs fast in underwear and people are excited. And that's not a red flag for me. That is like the red bat symbol going off in Gotham. Like just nothing could be more worrying than people getting excited about a guy running 40 yards fast without pads. Like that's where I'm worried about him mostly. Is the hype all came from the Combine. He didn't stand out at Texas, really. I mean, people were talking about Isaiah Bond that doesn't even have a team being the better receiver than Matthew Golden. Gunnar Helm, he was taking a lot of the big time receptions. If Texas needed a first down, they were going to Gunnar Helm every single time. They weren't going to Matthew Golden. One of the reasons why I've not heard a lot of people talk about, he dropped the ball a lot. He's not got the best hands in the class. Like a lot of the time watching Texas, not watching a lot of Texas, a lot of the time he dropped the ball, which I was kind of worried about. For me, he seemed more like a project guy, someone who needs a bit of work, like time in. But I just think over at Green Bay now, he might not get the required reps needed because this wide receiver room is so crowded to actually get the development that he needs and to come on. I cannot, for the life of me, other than generations of peer pressure, understand why Green Bay decided to take him in the first round. Maybe it's because he like his name is Golden. Like, really? I don't know. I can't quite figure out why he was the guy that they chose to go for when there could have been so many in years prior. I just don't quite get it. He's never got over 1,000 yards in his career college. He came kind of close last year, but I mean, with his total, that was the same amount a rookie Xavier Worthy put up. So we're talking about just not that impressive numbers, not that impressive hands. Yeah, he's pretty fast, but so are all the cornerbacks he's going to be playing against. I need a hard sell on Matthew Golden. Lewis, I don't know if you're going to be the guy to do it, but I think Ali will be anyway. But Lewis, I'd like to hear you first.
So I'm not going to hard sell you on Matthew Golden, but my interesting thing with him is that I really liked when I scouted him, and I think I only managed to do 3 games of Golden because there actually wasn't a huge amount to watch. There wasn't the biggest sample size, but I liked the route running. You couldn't quite see the 4.29 speed on tape, but you could see really good acceleration. And one of the things that I was really impressed with was deceleration as well. So he really understood the use of tempo within his routes. And I thought he was a good route runner. I thought he was a developmental project, more as a Z, more as a movable piece, less so than an alpha. And so I actually ended up having him around my wide receiver 5 pre-draft, pre-combine. And then the combine happened, and we had Matthew Golden's the wide receiver 1. He's going to be drafted as wide receiver 1. He's going to go at 7 to the Panthers, or he's going to go at 12 to the Cowboys. And the hype got out of control. And when that started to happen, he started to drop down my board a little bit because I was like, no, it's not this. It's, this is a developmental project. This is someone with raw physical tools who has shown some really good route running ability, who can show the ability to line up all over the field and win at all 3 levels. I do like him, but it's not quite that. And then he did go in the first round. And then the Dynasty community went, no, take him too high, don't like him. And now he's dropping all the way into the mid-second. And so I've ended up with quite a few Matthew Golden shares because there is a point where I just start to follow draft capital. And when you have a first round receiver available that late on, I'm willing to take the risk. Do I like the fit in Green Bay? I like the fit with Jordan Love. I like the verticality with Jordan Love's arm. I like the fact that he'll take chances. They needed Tataro McMillan or Jaden Higgins in this draft class. They needed a true outside alpha boundary wide receiver. And the worry is that they think Matthew Golden's that. And Matthew Golden, to me, comps quite nicely with Jaden Reed in terms of someone who maybe their best role is going to be out of the slot, but actually they can be moved all over the field. They can be used in creative ways. You could get Matthew Golden involved in the rushing game so that he gets a free release. You could get him out of the slot or in motion so that he's not going to be jammed at the line of scrimmage by more physical press corners, but they already have Jaden Reed. So the worry is they've targeted him for a reason, and it's not just we need to take a first round wide receiver and this is the next one. They liked the fit of Matthew Golden. So I'm just really intrigued to see as we get a little bit more into sort of camp hype season and when some coach speak starts to come out, what do they see him as? Where do they see his role being in this offense? If it's we're going to trade Jaden Reed, I can kind of see it a little bit more, but for the time being, I'm a little bit confused by it.
And this Ali, I know I haven't pitched you on everyone, but I know you're a big fan of Matthew Golden, so I have to let you say your piece on him. And where would you take him? How high are you willing to take Matthew Golden?
So I am happy to take him around the 1-2 turn. So from the 112 is where I absolutely think about him. But the fact is, I don't have to take him there. I've been taking him literally 204, 205, 206 around about the same spot. It's literally Do I take him, Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins? And I tend to just lean my pre-draft rankings. I go with Matthew Golden. You know, I absolutely loved what I saw, especially it's just a weird offense. We had the other wide receiver in the Texas room we thought was going to be the best wide receiver coming into the season. You know, he didn't even get drafted. You know, the quarterback, Quinn Ewers, we thought was going to go really high. Obviously, he didn't either. And it's just a weird offense. What I saw from Matthew Golden, especially in the playoffs, the college playoffs, was pretty awesome. That's exactly what you want to see. Don't know what happened in the season. It was very, very patchy. But I just think that the Packers, they didn't have a big need. A lot of the mock drafts had them taking a defensive lineman, other positions other than wide receiver. You know, they had a crowded room. But the fact that they had that crowded room and still took Matthew Golden this high. You look at the Daniel Jeremiah, absolutely loved Matthew Golden, had him as his wide receiver 1 in the pre-draft process. So I think it just told you a lot about how high the NFL had Matthew Golden. And yeah, they felt like they couldn't pass up on him. And I think that he's going to have a big role. As Lewis mentioned, you can line him up almost anywhere. I don't think he's the rounded prospect. I think that there's a lot to work on. And obviously, if he doesn't hit straight away, I think the NFL community is already down on him. Then he could lose value. But yeah, I'm in on him, especially at that ADP of sort of a mid-second round. I've got a lot of shares right now.
Well, I've not seen him go there. I need to get involved with some of your league. Even like mid-second round. Even I'm thinking about taking a bit of Matthew. I'm seeing him go back into the first on a lot of my leagues. We need to do a swap at some stage.
Probably me.
I'll get some value. Yeah, it could actually. I am in a lot of leagues with you, Ali, actually, so that does make sense. Now we had James as well. James besmirching the good name of Cam Scadaboo here, calling him an absolute dud. I quite like Cam Scadaboo. If James is here, I'm sure I'd put up more of a fight. Yep. Lewis, any thoughts on Cam Scadaboo? I quite like taking him in that sort of mid to late second. I've got a couple of shares of him.
Yeah, so if I was unhappy taking Caleb Johnson at the 112, but I needed a running back, I can move back and take Cam Scatterbo and get an extra third round pick and get basically the same thing, which is goal line work and early down work from a more physical back with a better receiving back on the same team, but probably from an offense that isn't going to be that great. Probably roughly the same sort of prospect, but available 6 to 8 draft slots later, and be quite happy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lewis, you've got one more guy you've put in your dud category. So kind of similar question I had to Ali as well. You're talking about Dylan Sampson here. Is this a landing spot thing as well, or do you just not like the talent anyway?
It's a little bit of both. So for the landing spot question, he was obviously drafted to the Browns in the 4th round, but after they'd already drafted Quinshon Judkins in the 2nd round. Quinshon Judkins can kind of do everything Dylan Sampson can do, but slightly better. So it was always a slightly weird thing drafting 2 running backs when you have 2 running backs with, such early picks, when you have so many needs on the roster. Really strange, but not the only position that they double dipped in, but we're not talking about him on this episode. My issue with Dylan Sampson is mostly the Tennessee offense and the Tennessee offense's translation to the NFL. So if we look at the current Tennessee offense, probably the most successful player we've seen come out of that system is Cedric Tillman. And aside from that, we've seen a lot of busts come out of there, whether it's looking at, Hendon Hooker at quarterback, or whether it's looking at Jalen Wright's not done anything in his rookie season. You're looking at Jalen Hyatt, who won the Boletkin off and now is basically cuttable. I worry for how gimmicky that system is and how it translates to the NFL. Dylan Sampson was a huge projection because, he's a smaller back, good behind the line of scrimmage, relatively good rusher, didn't really catch a huge amount of passes. But the way that they run that system concerns me. I thought he'd really slip down draft boards because I really thought people would go, okay, he was taken in the 4th round. He was taken in the same round as Jarquez Hunter. He was taken in the same round as Woody Marks, taken in the same round actually as Cam Scatterbo and Bashal Tootin. And I thought he'd drop down draft boards, and he really hasn't. He's going at sort of the top of the 3rd round. And at that price, I just can't get on board with him. I don't have my rankings in front of me, but he's well into the double digits. I think somewhere around sort of RB 13, 14, which is a lot lower to where he's going. When a team tells you which running back they prefer, don't draft the person who's been drafted as the backup.
Yeah, for me, I didn't hate the tape on Dylan Sampson. I thought it was fine. The second he landed there, I was just like, nope. Like, there is no scenario where you shouldn't put Quinshon Judkins on the field. Like, he should be on the field every time ahead of Dylan Sampson. And it's such a Browns move to be like, what are you doing, you stupid, like, you morons? Why are you using a 4th round pick on a guy you clearly don't need? And then just go ahead and draft what a weird draft the Browns had. Only the Browns could have a draft that scattered and bizarre. And no one's even talking about this because of the rest of stuff they did with the quarterbacks. But this is a burned pick in my eyes. And the 4th round pick's nothing to turn your nose up at. But I can't quite wrap my head around why they've done it at all. But here we are. That's the Browns fear. Where's Han Roland when you need her for a Browns rant? That's what we need. Need to get her back on the show. That's absolutely amazing. So, boys, we're going to wrap up real soon. But before that, we're going to fire into the 2-minute warning. We got some trade questions. If you want your question on the show, head over to X, find the thread, comment it in, and we'll get to it. We're going to start off 12-team Dynasty Superflex PPR. Travion Henderson, who we spoke about earlier, one of our studs. Would you rather him or Zay Flowers? Lewis, we'll pitch it to you first.
Henderson really easily. I'm quite low on Zay Flowers actually, because I just don't really see the upside case in this offense. I don't think he's a wide receiver 1. I don't think he has any chance of finishing. I think like his ceiling is like wide receiver 20 on the season. So Travion Henderson to me really easily over Zay Flowers. I'm kind of out on Flowers at this point.
Ooh, Ali?
Yeah, I just think he's got replaceable production. Flowers much cheaper. Jacoby Myers is probably going to produce just as much as Zay Flowers does this year, much less cost. So give me Henderson, who could potentially be top 5, top 6 dynasty running back if he has a really good season.
Yeah, I'm not fully out on Flowers maybe as much as you boys, but I still think Henderson fairly easily for me there. So let's move on. We got the same thing again. 12-team Superflex PPR. Are you taking CeeDee Lamb and gonna need that 408 on top, right? You're gonna need that. CeeDee Lamb and the 408, or Trevor Lawrence and Garrett Wilson. Wow, what an interesting trade. Ali, let's go to you first on this one.
Yeah, this is going to pain me because I love CeeDee Lamb, but it's going to be the quarterback side. We're talking Superflex. I'm not a massive Trevor Lawrence fan, but I obviously admit that I think he could or should be in for a great season under Liam Cohen, with obviously Travis Hunter as a weapon now. And Garrett Wilson, I think, has been a little bit disrespected in dynasty rankings. I think he's right up there as a top 10 wide receiver. And again, he's going to be the only part of that offense that's going to work other than the running backs. So he's going to have an absolute ton of targets. So give me the quarterback side.
Did you ever grow to like Liam Cohen, even though he's clearly like so cringy and awful to listen to? Does that eventually start charming you, Ellie?
No, he's a snake.
Easy answer, no.
Easy, yeah, no. Lewis, what side are you on now? You on the CeeDee Lamb side or the Trevor Lawrence and Garrett Wilson side?
Now, if it hadn't been for that 408, maybe I'd have gone a different way. No, it's quite easily the Trevor Lawrence side for me. And I think there is a bit of projection in this. It is a little bit closer than you think, because you're basically guaranteed top 5 dynasty wide receiver production for 2 players who you go, yeah, that's a chance of a top 10 quarterback and a chance of a top 10 wide receiver. But Trevor Lawrence is actually my breakout, one of my favorite predictions for breakout quarterback this year in this system with those weapons. And Garrett Wilson, like, paired up well with Justin Fields at Ohio State. Maybe they can reclaim some of that. And obviously we've been quite disappointed in him, but he actually had a really nice fancy season last year. It just didn't feel like it because it wasn't the first overall breakout we thought it might be with a fully healthy Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, to me, it's quite easily the Trevor Lawrence side. Maybe get a second, 4th in there and I'll start reconsidering.
Yeah, absolutely. Counter with that extra 4th. Yeah, definitely. Next. Oh, we got what is this? What kind of hipster league is this? 12-team, 4-point passing touchdown, 0.5 tight end premium. You must have a rolled up beanie to join. Michael Penix Jr. and Colston Loveland, or CJ Stroud. Lewis, what are you thinking here? And do those rule changes make too much of a difference for you?
Not a huge amount to me. So 4-point passing touchdown. Yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit. 4-point passing touchdown just kind of flattens non-rushing quarterbacks a little bit to me. So I take the Loveland side because I'm that high up on him. Penix, I think, is quite exciting. Was having an argument with Rich Cooling earlier today about Michael Penix because he is way high on Michael Penix this season. CJ Stroud, we did see the floor fall out a little bit last season. So I think he is kind of undervalued right now. But yeah, with the lesser passing touchdowns with the upside of Penix and then getting Colston Loveland in as well, I think I go with the Loveland side.
Ali?
Yeah, as much as I don't want to go for an Atlanta quarterback because I absolutely hate them, I have to go with that side. I think Michael Penix, I think he's going to have a really good season. I think Drake London is going to have a really good season. Your guy, Mags. And yeah, Colston Loveland is top 5 dynasty tight end for me already. So in a little bit of a premium league, I'll take that over Stroud, who I agree, I think he's probably a bit undervalued. And with the extra weapons, you hope to see him bounce back a bit.
Yeah, I'd see him again, boys. I'll take the side you agreed with, Colston Loveland and Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback that's finally going to show Drake London how it's done, and he might even finish, inside the top 20 for points per game for the first time in his career this year. We'll see how that goes for Drake London, though. And the final one, 12-team Dynasty Superflex PPR. Oh my goodness me, look at this. Josh Allen or Caleb Williams, Garrett Wilson, and a 2026 first. Where are we leaning for that? Let's go, Ali. Let's pitch it to you first.
I think this is an absolute humdinger of a trade, and I think it's, if you're going to sell Josh Allen, you're going to have to get a package like this, and it is using projections, but I feel like I would lean the Caleb Williams side. I just think everything is in place for him now. I think that he could easily get to almost the top tier in Dynasty because of the lack of rushing like a Jaden Daniels. I don't think he'll quite get there, but you never know. He could get into that Mahomes tier, sort of the second tier down. I've spoken about Garrett Wilson a lot. I think he's underrated. And then with the extra first on top as capital to use, I think I'm happy to go with the Caleb Williams side. But obviously, no trade feels good, trading away Josh Allen. But I think I would probably be happy with that side.
Lewis, what side are you taking?
I'm the same as Ali, but here's where I slightly differ. When I'm looking at it and it's not my trade, I would take the Caleb Williams side. If I own Josh Allen, I'm probably not going to be willing to pull the trigger, because if I own Josh Allen, I need it to not be a fair trade. And I think I've actually had this conversation with you guys before in a league where I'm like, if I'm trading this player, I need you to make it a good enough offer that I'm not able to say no to it. You've absolutely blown me away. Like, I've sold Josh Allen before for 5 firsts over the next 2 years, where I was just like, oh shit, okay, yeah, I guess I have to take that. And I think this probably doesn't quite hit that boundary to me. So I like it in a vacuum. I'd really like the Caleb side in a vacuum. If I'm the one that owns Josh Allen, I'm probably not taking this offer.
Yeah, I'm going to have to wake up with a horse's head next to me to trade Josh Allen. It's just not. It's like,
yeah.
If I keep Josh Allen, my championship window is open. If I trade him, I don't know. I know Caleb's good. I know Garrett's good. I've got 0 question marks about Josh Allen. I have some about those players. So if I'm trading question mark for question mark here, I'm sticking with Josh Allen. You're going to need to bring even more heat than that to get him off my team. And speaking of bringing the heat, boys, we brought it today. It's been an absolute privilege being on the show with you guys, as always. Lewis, an absolute pleasure to have you on. Can you just remind everyone before you go, where can they find all your great stuff?
Absolutely. So you can find me on YouTube at Fantasy Pancake or on Twitter at FF_pancake. If you still have rookie drafts going on, you can find my rookie guide pinned on Twitter. Or if you want to read more of my thoughts, you can find my writing at DLF, Dynasty League Football.
Awesome. Ali, any parting comments before we wrap this up?
No, obviously, shame that James couldn't be on to back up his picks tonight. But yeah, thank you for coming on, Lewis. Fantasy Wildcard royalty. Love the work that you're doing at DLF and on your YouTube page. It's absolute great content, helpful. Rookie guide was great. Your buys and sells. Yeah, keep up the good work.
Thank you for having me on. Pleasure chatting with you both, as per always.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone listening at home as well. If you've not already, hitting like and subscribe. And hey, come say hi. Leave a comment wherever you are as well. It'd be great to hear from the audience. And guys, wrap it up now one more time. Just remember, when you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game.